Hi, this is Mark Mahoney, EDL 854, case study, missing booster, club funds. The summary of the case. George Washington is a middle school that has about 450 students. About 10 years ago, the population has started to decline due to young families moving to more of a suburban area, and the socioeconomic levels have decreased in those 10 years. However, that being said, it is still a very strong community with a lot of school support. And the principal of George Washington is Principal Stevens, who's been there for 4 years, and overall throughout the community and with the students and staff, he is very well liked. With a small district and with a small school, Principal Stevens is by himself, so he relies heavily on parents and volunteers to help with concessions, ticket sales, PTA, other activities that go on throughout the school. Alice Bowman, who's had 2 kids go through the school and currently has a 7th grade cheerleader, has asked Principal Stevens to come up with money through the PTA to help offset fees to go to New York City for a cheerleading parade trip. Mr. Stevens denied that request, and rightfully so. I believe that the PTA, one, cannot afford it, and that money should be raised for the entire school, not one individual. Mrs. Bowman was the ticket taker during the basketball game where the $50 went missing. Problem identification. What I do know, Mrs. Bowman assisted in ticket sales during the basketball game. She was heavily involved in many activities throughout the school. A gentleman in the community by the name of Mr. Dumas, just got paid. He used a $50 bill to purchase his ticket. Principal Stevens was there when he purchased the ticket. Mr. Stevens has a very detailed ticket procedures because he is the only administrator on duty and needs those procedures to make sure that no problems occur and that he can find all the money that he needs to in the ticket sales. According to Mrs. Bowman, she reported that 10 pre-numbered tickets, number 78 to 88, were torn, and she threw them away, and she noted that in the money bag or in the collection funds. Also, the ticket sales balanced, but the $50 was absent from the money bag. Problem identification, what I need to know. Was anybody working with Mrs. Bowman? Was there another parent? Was there a teacher? Did anybody else see anything? What exactly were the accounting procedures that Mr. Stevens used to make sure that this situation does not happen? Was there a camera involved? Did anybody else witness it? Was each volunteer properly trained on the procedures, or were you just kind of taught at the table? Was there a separate meeting to tell all volunteers how we do things in the correct order? And did anybody witness this transaction that took place? Problem identification. What was the problem? The problem was that $50 was missing from the bag. Mr. Dimmich used a $50 bill to purchase a ticket, which the Principal Stevens, witnessed. Mrs. Bowman reported 10 tickets were torn. That total is $50, so it's very ironic that the 10 tickets that were supposedly torn was also the same value of $50. The other problem was Mrs. Bowman seemed upset because she was denied the $798 for her child to cheer in New York and do the trip and the parade. Plan of action. The first plan of action is to follow due process and to report any missing funds to the district office so that they understand what you're dealing with, so that they're not shocked when this news occurs. Other plan of action is to review how you do your ticket sales, the procedures that you do. Are they double checked? And who is in charge of these game sale tickets? I would also like to interview Mr. Dumas. Is there a possibility that he went back to the table at halftime and said, hey, I ended up having $5. Can I get my $50 back? And they did it that way without recording it. It's a possibility, but I think it's important to go through all factors when you're doing this plan of action. And also interview Mrs. Bowman. Resolve the issues. The biggest way to do that is to improve your procedures. Even more detailed. It might take a little bit of time, but once you've trained your volunteers and your teachers, I think this procedure will go more smoothly, and these small actions will not happen in the future. Possibly do a background check on all parent volunteers. If they're around kids that are in a school, just like teachers or a paraprofessional or a bus driver, I think a background check is not too much to ask. And then I would get more teachers involved. If we're doing ticket sales, I would have one teacher, one parent. It's better to have 4 eyes instead of 2. If money's available, get cameras involved. Put them around the school, not only for safety of money, but safety of kids, intruders, those type of things where you have access to that. Another option is, and I know it's a small community, but maybe $50, $75 at the beginning of the year would pay for a parent pass to get to all activities, or a student pass, maybe that's $50. We use that at our school. Parents can pay online. You get like a small credit card, and you just flash it at each game. You don't have to worry about carrying cash, and it's much easier to record that way and safer. Debriefing the problem, what I feel the principal is taking advantage of. I think he seems like a nice guy, and a lot of people like him. And I think he trusted a lot of people, and I think that in the end that might have hurt him with that $50 missing. I also feel that maybe the George Washington Middle School, its integrity or what people think of it might be hurt as well. Thinking that this will change the parent volunteer procedures. You might lose some parent volunteers because it does take more work. You must be more detailed, and you need to have more teachers involved. And that's going to be a hard thing to do because it's not a requirement, and there's probably not money to pay those teachers to get involved. But I think that's something that Mr. Stevens is going to have to face, and it will be an uphill challenge. And I value. I think it's great. I mean, a small community with low income and a community that's kind of spreading out. People going to the suburbs. I think it's really cool how involved the community is, how they want to be interactive and active with their students and their lives with them. That's very unique, and I think that's very positive, and that's something that Mr. Stevens and the community can build off of. Debriefing the problem. Again, where's that $50? A $50 bill is pretty easy to find. It didn't get mixed up like 5s or 10s. Does the dynamic of the school or of George Washington Middle School, does it change? Do people think less of it? Are people worried about their money? Are they worried about being involved in the school? And what or how could Mr. Stevens, what could he have done to maybe prevent this situation? I think the easiest way is to get 2 people at each table, even if it's 2 parents and you can't get a teacher there. I think that would probably prevent a lot of issues with miscalculations or missing funds, possibly. Component 1, effective management. If it were me, I would look at as far as funds goes, maybe an extra administrator. Maybe it's a half-time administrator. Maybe it's a teacher that works 8 to noon as a teacher and then noon to 5 as an administrator. Maybe it's someone like me that wants an administrative degree, not ready for a principal job, but would like some management duties. Get lead teachers involved. You still need to have parent volunteers. It's still very important to have parents involved in your community, but I think we need to train them, have meetings with them to let them know what money we have, where that money's going, and just be more transparent with all of our management activities. I think you can be more effective, and I think you'll be able to relax a little bit more, and we'll take something off Mr. Stevens' plate a little bit. Component 2, the social learning. Anytime parents are involved in the school and what's going on in their kids' lives, the support is going to grow. You're going to get more people involved. It's going to be a place where kids are going to feel safe. Parents are going to feel that their kids are getting a good education, both mentally, socially, and physically. and that's very important outside the walls of the school. I thought it was unique that only 3 sports were at the building plus cheerleading, but those activities are taken very serious, and I think a lot of people like to go to those games, go to those activities, not only to support their child and their school, but also for entertainment. And Mr. Stephen is very supportive of those activities, and I think it's a great thing for everyone involved. Lastly, we need to protect the PTA. We need to protect the procedures that are done so that all these activities can continue to function at a high rate where the stress level's down and that people are there for the enjoyment of what it is and not to be break a law or something even worse that could really hurt the community and the school. And lastly, component 3, academic learning for each student. Like I said earlier, when parents are involved in school and parents are involved in their kids' activities, the academic achievement automatically grows. If kids go home and the parents are not involved in what's going on in the kids' lives, the less interest that kid will have in school or an outside activity. So it's important for parents to be heavily involved any way they can. As a principal, whether it's myself or Mr. Stevens, communication with all stakeholders has got to be a top priority. The goals of the school that year, what vision we see, academics and activities for the future. Could we add another sport? Could we add another 4 or 5 cheerleaders? If the parents know those goals, they're more likely to jump on board so that they can raise funds, so that they can be more involved with the school. And lastly, is more communication with parents, monthly meetings. That school kind of reminds me of maybe a town hall meeting where you invite the parents, cookies and punch the first Wednesday of every month, and just kind of communicate with what's going on in the school, the needs of the school. Have teachers there so that the parents can see the teachers and what they're doing for their child, and that will also increase the academic learning or the achievement of each student. And if that happens, everybody, Mr. Stevens, the students, the community will all be successful. Thank you.